video is going to be a ranking video. I'm going to rank my top 10 eyeshadow palettes from my least used to my most used palettes. If that sounds like a good time to you, go ahead and settle in. If you're new here, welcome. I'm glad you came. If you like beauty, fashion, and self-care, then consider subscribing. I'd love to have you in the family. But now we're going to jump into the rankings. So for this video, I have gathered all of my palettes and I'm ranking my top 10, as I mentioned, from least used to most used. I will have to say I am pretty ruthless when it comes to decluttering, so I don't have a lot of palettes that I don't like. I also have a rule about how many palettes I'm allowed to buy, which is why I don't have a very large collection. So when I have the 10 palettes, none of these palettes are bad. I'm just sharing which ones I like the most out of the 10 really great palettes that I own. So with all those explanations aside, let's start with palette number 10. So in spot number 10, we have the Natasha Denona Mini Nude palette. This is a great palette. There's nothing wrong with it. Just for my life, a lot of the shades are a little bit too warm. The one thing that's keeping me from possibly decluttering this is because I really enjoy this shade right here. That is the shade Lumino. I really like it all over the lid. I'm going to try to swatch some of these for you just so you can see what it is I like about them. So that is Lumino from the Mini Nude palette. Like, look at that. That is so pretty, which is why I keep the Mini Nude around. If you stick around my channel, or if you are familiar with like my Instagram or my blog, you know that I don't do a lot of drugstore makeup. It's just not usually my jam. But this palette is an exception to the rule. It is the Jungle Lights palette from Flower Beauty. This retails for $18. And there are 6 shades in here, but if I'm going to be completely honest, the only color I use is this one. I justify this because this alone would cost more than $18 from a high-end beauty brand, and that is the shade Wild. I'm going to try to give you a swatch. It is a very like chunky texture and it is extremely glittery, so you've been warned. Normally Flower Beauty isn't on my radar, but Hannah Louise posted, mentioned the Jungle Lights palette, and she's like, eye makeup goals, so I decided to pick it up. And the other colors in the palette are quite a bit. They're like a lot. And so they're a little bit outside my comfort zone. Maybe one day I'll play with them. And the reason why it is number 9 on the list is because there's only one shadow that I use from the palette. Continuing down on the line, number 8 is the Rose Quartz palette from Huda Beauty. These colors are beautiful. I have swatched the shade Energized just so you can kind of get an idea of what these shades look like. It is right here. As you may have noticed, I really love like a shiny eye, like metallics. I like glitters, foils, that kind of thing. The reason why this is so low on the list is because this is like alternate life Holly palette. It's a beautiful palette. I'm not very good at eyeshadow. I am trying to learn, but these are very sparkly colors. They're not always the best for my everyday makeup. So I purchased this thinking I was going to be a little bit more of a risk taker when it came into my makeup, but it just hasn't been practical for my everyday life. However, it is very beautiful, and if you love shimmery eyeshadows, you should totally pick this up. So number 7 is an older palette that I've had for a while, and it's just like one of those palettes I kind of forget to use, and it is the Sultry palette from ABH. I don't think you can get this anymore. I feel like it was limited edition. I just don't reach for this very often, and I think it's just because I have so many other newer things. But my favorite color from this palette is the shade Teak. I will swatch it for you. Oh man, yeah, we're starting to get a little bit messy. So this is the shade Teak from the Sultry palette. I really am kind of disappointed that this palette is so far down on the list. I mean, it's not so far down because it's just number 6, but I anticipated that it would be higher up on the list when I purchased this, and it is the Natasha Denona Glam palette. This is what this looks like. Now, part of the reason why this ranks down so low at number 6 is because I have some other palettes that are very, very similar, which we'll talk about, which means I just don't reach for this one as much as I thought I would. So we're not going to harp on this too long because I don't want to give away too much. But I just don't use this as much as I thought I would, considering some other items that I have in my collection. It's still a great palette. If you don't have the other palettes I'm going to talk about, then I would still recommend picking this one up. We're finally into the top 5 eyeshadow palettes. This is probably the bougiest eyeshadow palette that I own, and it's really not that bougie. It's the Charlotte Tilbury Celestial Pearl Luxury Palette of Pearls. I'm going to show you the outside because it's so pretty. This was, I believe, a limited release for holiday, so I'm not sure if you can pick it up. This is what it looks like on the inside. This is ranked number 5 because it's easy. You can't get a ton of looks from this palette, which for me is fine because I don't make things complicated with my eyeshadow. Like, I open this palette, I know what look I'm gonna get. Let's see, what color am I gonna swatch for you? I'm gonna do this really pretty shade right here. Actually, they're all really pretty. Uh-oh. We are running out of real estate for the swatches. So we're going up the hand. This right here, if you can see it, it's very reflective, is my favorite shade from the Charlotte Tilbury palette. So getting to number 4, we're getting into the palettes that I use all the time. And this one is probably going to surprise you. It is the Ilia palette. It is the Cool Nude, The Necessary eyeshadow palette. I did a comprehensive review of Ilia for my blog. I can link that below for you if you're interested. I bought this eyeshadow palette thinking, oh, this is going to be a clean beauty eyeshadow palette. It's going to be awful. And I was pleasantly surprised. Like, I've had this for a couple of years now, and it's not going anywhere. I love it. My favorite shade, I bet you can guess which one is my favorite shade. Ding, ding, ding. So this is my favorite shade from the Ilia palette. Number 3 is an oldie but a goodie. It is the palette that actually got me interested in eyeshadow palettes because previously I didn't purchase them. And that is, dun 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 dun, the Soft Glam palette from ABH. This, I love this palette, which is really funny because the shades are kind of warm. I have dabbled in all of these shades, and Orange soda, which is orange, which is something you would think I would not like, is probably pretty critical to any kind of look that I would do with this palette. My favorite color from the palette, however, is the shade Sultry, which is interesting because they made the Sultry palette based off of this shade Sultry, and then none of the colors in the Sultry palette were remotely like this. Anyway, I'm gonna swatch Sultry for you. So this is Sultry from the Soft Glam palette by ABH. So now we're at the second place eyeshadow palette, and you probably have guessed what it is or have a pretty good idea, and it is the Mini Glam palette. It is ranked number 2, and the reason why I enjoy this more than the full size is because this is simple. There's not like 10,000 colors. It is small. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It has the shades that I like. And now, interestingly, we're going to do a little bit of a comparison here. So we have Glam, Mini Glam. Interestingly, there's actually not a lot of crossover in this palette. I don't know if Natasha Denona, I don't know what her thought process was. Like, did she want people to buy all the palettes? Because she came out with the Mini Glam first and then the Glam. So she was wanting to make sure people had reason to buy the bigger palette. I don't know. I think if you own this one, that you don't need the bigger palette. Okay. Okay, my number 1 palette makes things really complicated because you can't buy it, and it is like a mashup of existing eyeshadow palettes from Natasha Denona. And this is an exclusive to BoxyCharm. Now here's the interesting thing about this. This palette has 2 colors from the Glam palette and 1 color from the Mini Glam palette, which is why this is my number 1 eyeshadow palette, because it combines like the best of both worlds. We have some different colors from the Glam palette. We have the matte shade from the Mini Glam palette. Sometimes I will use these in conjunction with each other, but I would say most of the time I just reach for this one. I'm sorry that you cannot purchase this, but I wasn't gonna change my number 1 palette. So there we go. Those are my top 10 eyeshadow palettes ranked. Some things you may have noted, I really enjoy a very small color range, and I really enjoy Natasha Denona palettes. I would love to know what palettes are your favorite palettes, the ones that you use the most. If you could leave that in a comment, maybe I can try some of them the next time I purchase an eyeshadow palette. And if you like this palette, please give it a thumbs up. It will really help my channel as I'm trying to grow it. And until next time, bye.